All right, let me show you the answers for all the think, pair, share problems here. If you got these right, then skip this video, this part of this video, and move on to the next one. All right, so we've got 23.495. That's divided by 0.0004. Okay, so step one is to move the decimal point in the dividend over until the dividend is a whole number, and then move the decimal point in the divisor until it's, well, in the same number of spaces. Okay, then we do a check to see if both the dividend and the divisor are both whole numbers. And we can see that the divisor is not. It's 0.4. That's not a whole number. So we have to move the decimal place one more over, which means we have to move the dividend decimal place one more over. And now both the dividend and the divisor are both whole numbers. And we have to put a 0 here in this space as a placeholder, and this will be our new decimal place. So now we can just carry out the division. So 4 goes into 23 at most 5 times, which gives us 20. And the difference between 23 and 20 is 3. Drop down to 4. 4 will go into 34 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. And the difference of 34 and 32 is 2. Drop down the 9. And 4 will go into 29 at most 7 times, because 7 times 4 is 28. And 29 minus 28 is 1. Drop down the 5. 4 will go into 15 at most 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And 15 minus 12 is 3. Drop down the 0. This is the last one we're going to drop down. And 4 goes into 30 at most 7 times to give us 28. Sorry, my brain slowed down there for a minute. And the difference between 30 and 28 is 2, and that's our remainder. So we're going to have, as an answer, 58,000. Let me write it off to the side here. I got more room. Okay. So our answer is going to be 58,737 with a remainder of 2. Okay, that's expressing it in one form. Or 58,737 with our remainder on top and our divisor on the bottom. And 2 over 4 can be reduced. So we've got 58,737, and that 2/4 can be reduced down to 1/2. So that's where the 1/2 came from. All right, let's look at this other example here. Okay, so we've got 23,000 or 23, sorry, 0.492, and that's divided by 0.022. All right, so move the decimal point in the dividend until we get a whole number. Sorry about that. And then we'll move the decimal point in the divisor the same number of spaces, 3. And you'll see that both the dividend and the divisor are now whole numbers. So we don't have to do any more. We'll just put the decimal point here for our quotient, and we'll start our division. So 22 will go into 23 one time. And 23 minus 22 is a difference of 1. And we'll drop the 4. Now 22 is too large. 22 cannot go into 14. So that'll be a 0. It goes into it 0 times. So now we'll drop down the 9. And 22 will go into 149 6 times. And 6 times 22 is 132. Don't worry, I didn't do that in my head. No, I think I did actually, but you can use your calculator for something like that. Okay, so that gives us a difference of 17. and drop the 2. And 22 goes into 172 at most 7 times, which gives us 154. Find the difference of that, and we get 18. So that's our remainder. So what we've got is a quotient of 1067 with a remainder of 18. Okay, that's one way to write the answer. But we have 1067 with a remainder over the divisor. And just like before, we want to do a factor tree of 18 and 22. And so 18 can be written as 2 times 3 times 3. And 22 can be written as 2 times 11. The 2's cancel. So we're left with 1067 and 9/11ths. All right. So that's the answer that I told you earlier. Okay, so this is the think pair shares for, getting a quotient result in the form of a remainder or a mixed fraction quotient. But we might want the quotient to be in decimal form. So let's look at the think pair share for that. So we've got, let's see, 25.65 divided by 10.2. And all we need to do is move the decimal point in the divisor over until we make the divisor a whole number. And then we have to move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of times in the same direction. So now we've got 256.5 for the dividend, and we're going to divide 102 into that. So 102 will go into 256 at most 2 times, which will get us 204. Right, and that gives us a difference of 52. And now we'll drop the 5 down. And 102 will go into 525 at most 5 times. And 5 times 102 is 510. And this will give us a difference of 15. Now remember, even though we're out of digits, we can still add zeros. Just add a few more zeros there. So we had a remainder of 15 there. Let's drop a 0. And 102 will go into 150 one time. So we've got 102. And the difference between 150 and 102 is 48. Drop down a 0. And 102 will go into 480 4 times. And so that'll give us 408. And 480 minus 408 will borrow, and that gives us 72. Drop a 0. And 102 will go into 727 times, and that gives us 714 with a difference of 6. Drop down another 0. Okay, and 102 is larger than 60, so we can't go into it, in which case we drop another 0 and put a 0 here. But this is our cutoff point, because remember I said, to round it to 4 decimal places. And so right here is, the end of 4 decimal places. That's where the 7 is. So when we look at the trailing digit, or the digit to the right of 7, it's a 0, which means we're going to leave the 7 alone. Okay. And so that's how we got this answer of 2.5147 rounded to 4 decimal places. Okay, so that concludes this section. Let me know if you have any questions.